With the growing threat from adversaries, including China, the pressure is increasing to take a more aggressive approach to advanced technologies, including AI. But there are ethical concerns. Dustin Carmack is a research fellow in the Center for Technology Policy at the Heritage Foundation. He's former chief of staff for the Director of National Intelligence. Dustin, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Where are we in comparison to China when it comes to artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think, I believe I've heard, the previous guest that you had mentioned a little bit about where we are in this fight. And I think, where China currently is that they have large data sets, as he mentioned, and they are advancing very quickly as it relates to surveillance technologies. They've got a great landscape which they've used to essentially surveil their people. And so when it comes to artificial intelligence, they've essentially abused it from an ethical standpoint to rapidly advance a lot of their technologies as it relates to a subfield of artificial intelligence. And so that's where we see us in this fight, is that the U.S. needs to really pick up speed here, in which we go through all of our fields while doing it in an ethical way.
So what about other technologies like hypersonics?
Hypersonics, yeah, the test that was just mentioned here recently from the summer, there was 2 tests apparently, is really concerning, but it's not a surprise to me. They have been making rapid advances in technologies, and the sad fact about matter of this is that a lot of the technology, computer forensics that go into this product likely came from U.S. technologies or other Western technologies that essentially the Chinese have stolen and helped implement and move quicker in a testing fashion. And so when we look at this technology and how our defenses compare to it, it's very concerning because of the way the hypersonics work in terms of our radar systems, of how we can track those and our capabilities to defend against them.
You know, there's been a shift in the intelligence community recently away from counterterrorism toward near-peer adversaries, namely China. Do you think we have enough intelligence and enough resources dedicated to China?
Well, I can say this: when I was working for Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe last year, we shifted the IC's budget, which is the primary function of ODNI. We shifted that budget upwards of 20%, focused specifically on China and the great power competition that we're seeing now. It's not that that counterterrorism has lost any kind of focus, especially 20 years after 9/11. I think the threat of terrorism is still rampant around the globe, and what we've seen in Afghanistan, I think we're going to continue to face massive challenges there. But where we need to go on China is a very hard target. It's it's a difficult environment to really pick up intelligence from. And so where we're going on this, resource-wise, it cannot wait any further. And so I agree that we need to pick up the pace.
I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, which is China collecting this enormous amount of data on its own citizens. They're also exporting surveillance technology to other countries. What impact do you think that's going to have on the United States?
Correct. If you look at how they're working through the Belt and Road Initiative to press technologies to essentially give 5G in a box to countries at a discounted rate, with that comes with a lot of the national security concerns that the intelligence community and others have as related to those technologies, of how that data possibly could be funneling back to China. The FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr this week raised concerns as related to DJI drones, which is one of the most prominent drones markets that are based out of China, in terms of how that technology and some of that data could reach back to China. And essentially these data sets, if you look at what happened between the OPM hack, the Equifax hack, other mechanisms of just purchasing U.S. user data, which is openly available right now, they're gaining massive data sets that can be plugged and played, even if they don't have the technology to use it right now. In the long term, they can use this technology to gain massive insights from a national security perspective of government officials, all the way down to everyday people, American citizens, that could be used in foreign and malign influence campaigns in the future.
We talked to Nick Shalon about the supply chain. Where else are we vulnerable? And, what are the biggest vulnerabilities we have, briefly?
I think if you look at his discussion of cybersecurity, and I think, this year is kind of, it's been a cybersecurity month, the month of October. And I think there's been a lot of good focus on this. I think there's a lot of good folks in the government that are working on this. But what I worry about is the same concern that he has with the artificial intelligence piece, is that the vastness of the bureaucracy around DC, even if it's meant in good fashion, if it's meant for capability purposes. It's meant for accountability. We are not moving quick enough. And so when it comes to where we are on cyber, we thought we were in a pretty good place, ahead of the SolarWinds and some of these hafnium attacks from these nation state characters such as Russia and China. And we clearly aren't in a good place even as a government, let alone making sure that we are protecting the 90%, roughly 85 to 90% of critical infrastructure in the United States is privately owned. And so we've got a long ways to go before we get there. And so that's, if you look at that supply chain, and cybersecurity is part of that piece, but we've got to get our own systems protected, especially in the future of technology such as quantum computing and the ability of quantum to break possible encryption. We've got a lot of work to do.
All right. Well, Dustin, thanks so much for joining us.